And welcome to Too Many Movies, the podcast where we discuss DVDs, Blu-rays, and even the occasional VHS tape. I'm your host, Hal, and with me here today, Chaos, you're back.
I love penis.
Oh boy.
Hello, everyone, and I'm back, and it's gonna be one of those special episodes today.
Yeah, I mean, with an intro like that, it has to be special. Great.
Yeah. So it's been a while since I've been on this podcast, and clearly there's been a ton of progression as of late, if the Howard the Duck episode is anything to go by. But we're not here to talk about Howard the Duck today, are we?
No, we're not. We're talking about a different superhero movie that, yeah, a while back you messaged me and were just like, hey, I'd like to do an episode on this particular film. And I was like, you know what? That's a good idea. And we're doing it in the month of August because it's been about a year since it happened, since it premiered.
Right.
Because it premiered last August of 2023.
Wait, that's odd. I thought it leaked back in Oh, wait, I thought we were talking about the Sandy Cheeks movie. God fucking damn it.
Oh, well, now your intro with I Love Penis makes sense. No. No.
Oh, fuck.
I did watch the Sandy Cheeks movie this weekend. I have nothing really to add to it other than it's not very good.
You said, oh, and there was another thing that came out last August. Blue Beetle, right?
Yeah, that's the movie we're talking about today. Blue Beetle, one of the movies we're talking about today. Yeah, you expressed interest in wanting to talk about Blue Beetle, and you know what? I thought that would be a good idea. Because when you had asked me, I'd only seen it once. I didn't like it. But then I figured, you know what? I think it is worth giving a second chance. I still didn't like it, but I do understand why someone would watch it and get something out of it. And so even though I don't really particularly like it, I mean, that doesn't mean there aren't people out there who do like it.
Yeah, right.
You know what? I've been talking. Why don't you take it away? This is Blue Beetle is more your domain, so I'll leave it to you.
Right. So I actually have a bit of a funny story with Blue Beetle, kind of just starting from all my experience with the comics till now. Until the movie came out, I've actually been familiarizing myself with a lot of Jaime's comics, because I actually liked a lot of Jaime's animated appearances that I saw beforehand, mainly him being one of the best characters in Young Justice Season 2, and one of the few things I consistently liked about the Teen Titans movies.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, I started getting into the comics, and if I can share my personal experience with Jaime's comics, the 2006 Blue Beetle run is actually one of my personal favorite comic book runs of all time, and it was basically the sole reason why I was as excited for the movie as I was. The New 52 run is fucking dog shit and one of the worst things I've ever read. The Rebirth run is basically just in the middle ground of bad, just not as bad as the New 52 run. And then you have the Graduation Day miniseries and the current ongoing run, which is actually concluding very, very soon. But I haven't been completely caught up with that run. But from the majority of the stuff that I've read in that run, I've actually liked it quite a bit, though it definitely does take a while to actually get going well, since Graduation Day is just kind of okay. But then just going past that, Blue Beetle was probably the most hype that I've ever been for any project in 2023. And that also included some other stuff I was really looking forward to, like Gamera Rebirth, Godzilla -1, My Adventures with Superman, The Works. And then I actually managed to see the movie in the theater, and it was one of my personal favorite theater experiences of all time. It was just such an experience actually seeing the movie on the big screen finally, when it was released during the time where a lot of people were kind of fearing that a lot of DC projects would be taken down
Mm-hmm.
because of the stuff that's been going on at Warner Brothers at the time, especially with Batgirl.
Yeah.
And even then, beforehand, even though Blue Beetle was coming out, it was kind of sad because like a lot of the advertising for Blue Beetle just wasn't around at all, and it was only completely last minute. All because Warner Brothers spent their entire advertising budget on Flash, which literally everyone hated.
Yeah, that was not a good time to be at DC back in summer of 2023 because you had the Flash, and so Blue Beetle just did not. It really had a hard time coming out after the Flash of all movies, you know?
Right. And then when Blue Beetle actually came out and a lot of people at the time really liked it, people were actually starting to, even though Blue Beetle right now kind of has a more middling reception, just mainly among Letterboxd, you also have people asking, what if Warner Brothers put all their advertisement towards Blue Beetle instead of Flash? And I can kind of get why Warner Brothers kind of avoided doing that because Blue Beetle is a movie that is focusing on Jaime Reyes, which is a character that DC really wants to push, but it's ultimately like not as big of a star as Flash or Michael Keaton's Batman, and that's like the other obvious advantage that Flash has. You want to advertise the nostalgia based shit.
Yeah, yeah.
But Blue Beetle at least did manage to make some impact with being one of the few DC extended universe movies that actually had a good critical reception. And after it got released in theaters, it became the most streamed movie on Max, which was enough to greenlight an animated series that was announced last month.
You know what?
I believe.
That makes sense to me. That like it didn't become a huge hit that everybody was watching until it went to streaming, because it seems like, yeah, putting it in theaters again after the Flash was kind of not good, because after the Flash, I'm sure people were like, well, I don't want to waste my time going to the movie theater to see whatever DC's doing next. So I guess they wanted to wait. And then once it was on Max, then people watched it and they were like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty good. Of the people who watched it and liked it.
Right. And like that's also like the funny thing about Blue Beetle. The most ironic part is that Blue Beetle was originally supposed to be HBO Max exclusive when it was originally announced, but a lot of those HBO Max exclusive DC projects got scrapped because I believe the head of Warner Brothers at the time didn't like how expensive a lot of the HBO Max movies were in relation to how many people were subscribed to the service.
Right.
And wanted to make movies for the service that range between 35 to 40 million dollars, which yikes.
You could probably make a superhero film in that budget. It's just because I guess because we're in the era where the superhero movies have to be 100 and 200 million dollar budget, they're just like, well, I guess we can't just give that little pittance of amount of a budget to it. It's like, yeah, $30 million pittance.
Yeah, and it's like Blue Beetle did have like a pretty reasonable budget compared to the other DCU movies like Black Adam and especially Flash.
Well, Flash was upwards of what, like 200 to 300 million, if I remember correctly. Yeah,
it was almost as bad as Dial of Destiny.
No, yeah, exactly. Oh, that's why like Flash and Dial of Destiny were like the poster child of awful 2023 box office bombs.
And if they were the poster childs, and the Marvels was the fucking poster baby, because the Marvels is literally considered to be the biggest box office bomb of all time now.
Oof, a movie I still haven't watched. And surely I'm missing out.
Yeah, and while Blue Beetle didn't cross into that same area of box office infamy as like Shazam 2 because everyone just kind of expected it still made more than what was originally projected. Blue Beetle was the lowest grossing movie of the entire DCEU, which is still which is still actually kind of impressive that it's still gaining a following now because and like the actual DC stuff that's going on right now, you have Blue Beetle gaining a following even after its movie did poorly. But the Suicide Squad actually isn't getting much following, despite it being critically well received, but doing poorly. You might respond with, but wait, it is. And I say, no, it isn't. Peacemaker is getting all that attention because it's one of the Max shows that did well the most.
I was gonna say, I guess you're right with the Peacemaker. I was gonna say I thought Brian's James Gunn tomfoolery was going farther than we expected, but I guess not.
Yeah, and I really wish that the Suicide Squad got the most attention because I watched the first 2 episodes of Peacemaker and they were fucking terrible. But okay, getting back on track.
Yeah,
and trust me, we're gonna talk about the movie soon. Okay, so like
there's a lot of
afterwards, after like it came out in theaters, I saw it twice in theaters actually. I had like an interesting history with Blue Beetle and my friends where like as it was coming out on digital and one of my friends watched it. He actually watched it and he fucking hated it. Which actually kind of led me down this path of actually discussing with the movie more and what actually works or didn't work, to the point where I even talked about scheduling a potential watch party with him, but it never happened. And what actually ended up happening instead is that one night I actually watched the movie, I believe back in like November or December, and actually made a more critical analysis of the movie. So I've watched Blue Beetle 5 times now, and I think there's like a lot that I can say on it. It's not like, I will say the history with it is not as funny as my adventures with Superman, and we'll get to that someday. But for now, let's just talk about Blue Beetle the movie. It's one of my personal favorite movies of all time, but it's also pretty generic.
Yeah, because that's the thing with when I was watching it that I've realized I don't necessarily hate the movie. I think it's mostly because of superhero fatigue. Superhero fatigue is why I don't love the film, but it's also why I don't hate the film, because I've seen this kind of story done better, but I've also seen it done way, way worse. So I'm sort of grateful for what it actually achieves, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I every time I usually like think back to this movie. On its own, it is kind of generic, and I usually think that if it weren't for my connection to the Blue Beetle comics, I probably wouldn't love it as much.
No, yeah,
because there are a few things that actually do help Blue Beetle stay apart from the rest of the crowd, unlike what some other people would like you to believe. For example, the music, it's consistently the best score in the entire DCU.
See, that's
in my
something
humble opinion.
See, that's something I would agree with, because I mean, not only has the music in DC been kind of shit because of the fucking lame, bland scores that Man of Steel and BVS get, and the absolute obnoxious score that Wonder Woman got.
Right.
And also, I'm just a sucker for synth, so the score in this movie being nothing but like 80s synth was kind of tickling my fancy.
Yeah, I definitely like relate to that, and it also kind of works tonally for Blue Beetle because you kind of have like the more techie aspect of Jaime Reyes.
Yeah, so it makes sense.
But also you had the movie is backdrop with 80s material of Ted Cord, so the 80s style music kind of works. And it isn't even just like the synth stuff that works for me, it's also like a lot of the action music. I noted this when I was rewatching this for the video, but the battle theme against the final fight against Jaime and Carapax is excellent, and I literally listen to it all the time. It's so good. I would say that's my personal favorite piece of music in the movie, but I also noted that another thing that you brought up while I was watching it is that Blue Beetle actually had a distinct theme to it.
That is something I noticed, where it's just like the dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, like it actually had a specific theme and melody to it. It wasn't just generic. I'm able to distinguish it. Like if I heard it outside of the movie, I'd be able to be like, oh, that's the Blue Beetle theme. Um, and I really didn't think we would get that anymore with superhero films. I feel as though the superhero films that have iconic scores to them have already been done, but I guess you can still make them iconic. Iconic
Yeah,
melodies are still
right.
being made.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that Blue Beetle score has iconacy, because I usually like think back to Man of Steel and BVS, and in the moment, I think that some of those music pieces for those respective movies sound like grand and epic. And then when you actually just kind of look back on it, it's you just don't remember it at all. There's only one piece of music that I remember from both of those films, and it's Lex Luthor's theme in BVS. And not only was that theme made for a very terrible take on Luthor, but it literally just went dun 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 dun, like that.
I don't remember that at all, but I believe you.
Uh, I would say the other advantage that Blue Beetle has over a lot of these other movies, especially compared to like the other DC movies, is a little something called respecting the comics.
Mhm.
I know that sounds like such not even just respecting the comics, actually either respecting good comics or taking what didn't work and actually making it work, because there's actually I mean, obviously there's like a lot of comic book stuff in the 2000 that took way more liberties with the source material, but also just kind of looking at the DCU, I'd argue that something like Man of Steel is a pretty good adaptation of certain comics. Here's the thing, it's adapting John Byrne's Superman comics. A lot of those are really terrible.
Yeah, that is something that I feel like this is a topic that's often talked about on the podcast, and that is trying to decipher what makes a good adaptation of something. Because
Right.
I've talked about it multiple times with Puff with the Dune movies and trying to decipher what is an actually good Dune adaptation. But also, I've been thinking about this way back to even when I was making analysis videos. And I often bring up The Shining as this adaptation of a story that is not accurate but is still iconic. Because at what point are you just copying and pasting something from the comics, and at what point are you trying to make something new for the world of film? And so
Right.
that is not an easy task, and I it's hard for me to tell. I believe you when you say that this movie does do that well. I just don't have that knowledge to connect it to, because I have never read a Blue Beetle comic in my life. So
Right.
while you're judging it as an adaptation, I'm just merely judging it as a film, which is why I say I think overall it's a fine film. It's just me personally, I just can't make that connection.
Yeah, and that's like personally fair, because
Yeah.
like when I saw the movie in the theaters, obviously not everyone's going to connect to Blue Beetle all that much, and I think that applies to a lot of the people that I've talked with. I'd even argue you'd still get a lot more out of something like the 2006 Blue Beetle run, which was a way more consistently well written and nuanced.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to the Blue Beetle film, it kind of makes me think there's like multiple ways where you can like do a good adaptation for me. And while DC has done a lot of examples of bad adaptations, like The Flash, Blue Beetle is one of those adaptations, a very specific one that works for me, where it takes a lot of references and parts of the mythos from the comics without using much else from the rest of the DC universe. And then it manages to revamp a lot of those concepts for a big screen movie, and it also still does a lot more than a lot of other Blue Beetle adaptations. Like, for example, this is the first Blue Beetle adaptation where Jaime's family is really relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big key factor because Jaime's family is very important to the comics. Where I'd even argue that Blue Beetle 2006 has one of the greatest supporting casts of literally any comic book. You actually utilizing other Blue Beetle villains aside from the Reach, where this is the first on-screen adaptation of Carapax. And you also have the inclusion of Pago Island, which is a very big part of the Ted Cord run. And then you also have revamping certain concepts, like you bring Milagro into this, who's Jaime's sister, but you age her up for this movie, whereas in the comics, Milagro is a lot younger than Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
And with Carapax, you kind of make him this tortured soldier who got brought in by Victoria Cord and trained to be part of this project, instead of someone who went on Pago Island, got his brain stuck in a robot, and literally went on a killing spree.
Well, that just sounds funny.
And I will say, this might... I don't know how surprising this might be to you, but I actually prefer Carapax in the comics to Carapax in the movie, because when you actually do see Carapax in the comics, sure, you'd argue it's like more flat character-wise, but also Carapax just does a lot more to be actively threatening and scary as fuck.
Yeah, because I feel like one of the things with Carapax in this movie is, yes, you have that tragic backstory, but it's not introduced until literally the last 5 minutes. It's like, okay, you could have built this up a little better if you want me to find this guy sympathetic, because for the whole movie, he's not sympathetic until the last second. So it's just kind of weird from a writing standpoint.
Right. The only the only prelude you get to that is some implications of what Victoria did to Carapax,
Right.
and how he's just kind of no nonsense. But it's also kind of just a more generic sense of no nonsense, where he has like a lot of generic villain one-liners. And I feel like that Carapax shines best when it comes to the action sequences, because I think that both of his fights against Jaime, especially the second fight against Jaime, is really well pulled off and executed. I just kind of wish that there was a better secondary villain attached to that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Because you kind of need that interesting, cool robot villain that actually has these special powers that's fighting the main character. But I guess you also need that corporate bad guy villain, which is Victoria, who...
Yeah, and... Well, I mean, there is one point in the movie where Victoria says, "Oh, bummer," and it sounded like yummers. And we both lost our fucking minds with that.
I can't remember. Yeah, was it me who brought it up, or I'm just like...
It was you who brought it up.
Boy.
Then I rewatched the movie. Then I noticed it, and I was like, "God fucking damn it!" She even says it in the same tone.
Yeah. Yeah, because apparently people like Bamison and Bad Clips I've seen have just been posting just like this yummers clip, and I'm like, I know it's from The Boys. I don't remember this scene at all.
Yeah.
Is it from season 4? Because I haven't seen season 4.
I don't even know. Season 4 just sounds really fucking gross all around.
Even though I've seen the first 3 seasons, I have had no interest in watching season 4. So pretty telling.
But yeah, aside from that, I kind of wish they stuck with Carapax being the main villain more, or at least even being just a good main sympathetic villain, which would still be better than Zod and Man of Steel. But oops, did I say that out loud? Anyways, Victoria fucking sucks.
Yeah, I get what they're going for. You have this corporate big baddie CEO character. I'm kind of sick and tired of this character coming from movies that are made by big corporations. It's not cute.
Right.
But at the very least, okay, if you're going to do these kinds of characters, I don't know, make them funny, make them entertaining. You know, I think we had brought this up. I was thinking back to the first Iron Man movie, how Jeff Bridges is that corporate bad guy. But I just remember him being a lot more fun. And maybe that is my bias because I do like Jeff Bridges as an actor. But I don't know. There was still just something there. Whereas here, it's just Susan Sarandon being kind of snarky sometimes.
Yeah, I noticed something like that where there's the big CEO, the evil CEO villains, like so overused to this point where I finally found the distinction between what works and what doesn't. And I know one of my friends, Silver, also brought this up where if you want a CEO villain to actually stick the landing more, then you kind of need to show them actually making good CEO decisions. Otherwise, if you're going to write them as just an idiot, then that's bad writing because literally how did they get to this point?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, exactly. Like what are their actual skills? Who are these characters? I feel like they're trying to set up an interesting character motivation with Victoria by being like, "Oh, she was supposed to be the CEO when the grandfather died, but then it went to her brother." And they make a point where they're just like, because that sounds sexist. It's like, okay, but that doesn't make any sense because didn't they literally say she started the company with the grandfather to begin with?
Her whole motivation is basically mad that her nepotism was outdone by Ted's nepotism.
Yeah. It's like, okay. Yeah. And then it's revealed that he wasn't a very good CEO and then he went missing and so then she took over.
Yeah.
But she's also not very good a very good CEO. It's like, okay,
it's actually funny because Ted's also a terrible CEO in the comics, but unlike Victoria, unlike in the comics, he didn't just fucking run away when his wife died. So which we will get to more, but like back to Victoria. It's like kind of what we brought up where there are like specifics, there's are like skills that you really need to showcase in a CEO villain, especially if you have more screen time.
Yeah.
But I noticed for me that like the big distinction between the big CEO villains who work and the big CEO villains who don't work for me is you literally just make them super villains. Like I don't mean like just actual CEO like Victoria Cord. I mean like actual super villains like Green Goblin and Ironmonger.
Oh yeah, I feel like Green Goblin is like, or Lex Luthor. Like those are kinds of characters that are pinnacle of you have a bad guy who's a CEO. Because what works about Green Goblin is, yes, he's a CEO, but that's not his only character trait. He's actually just crazy. Willem Dafoe just so happens to be the CEO of a company in the first Spider-Man movie.
Right.
Like that's not his entire character.
Yeah, and what also kind of made me realize how bad Victoria was as a CEO villain is that around the same time, I know one of my friends is going to disagree with me when I talk about this, but around the same time, I was watching the first season of My Adventures with Superman, and they did their own take on the evil CEO villain. Here's the thing. In the first season, that villain was the Parasite. And the whole concept behind that is that basically, Dr. Anthony Ivo in the show is the parasite, and before turning into the parasite, we don't actually see him make many good business decisions at all. But here it actually kind of works for me because we actually kind of know that his main deal is that he only got to be as big as he was in the position that he's in and the tech community because of his scientific genius and those revolutions that he made. As an actual CEO, he consistently leeches off of his employees and takes pot shots at multiple other companies. And then when he actually turns into the parasite, then they actually use that CEO background to do metaphorical stuff with that, where Ivo literally just only wants more, even though he's already at the top. And then the moment that he loses everything, his sole goal is to just kill Superman and take away the power of Metropolis.
Right. So
Like that shit rocks for me.
Yeah, there's like actual reasons and actual setup. Whether or not you actually connect with that setup, there's something there.
Exactly. Where Victoria just doesn't really have anything.
Yeah. And again, it's Susan Sarandon just does not have the same screen presence as other actors that I've seen take on similar kinds of roles.
Like she's a very good actress, but she needs better material.
Yeah. I'm not saying Susan Sarandon is a bad actress. I'm just saying she doesn't have that juice that where she can take anything and make it good.
Yeah. And speaking of big actors, I guess that leads to the quote unquote last villain of like the three villains of the movie. Harvey Guillen was wasted in this movie.
Oh, like, big shit. Time. That's right. He was technically a villain. The fucking dog from Last Wish. That's right.
Yeah. And he played Dr. Sanchez in the movie, and he was completely, absolutely, utterly wasted.
I don't even understand why he was in the movie, because every time he was in the movie and they called him Dr. Sanchez, he's like, that's not my name. Like, it was a running joke. And then at the end, he's like, my name is some long Mexican name. But then he's also just credited as Dr. Sanchez on Letterboxd. It's like, okay, so is that his real name? Yeah. Like, what's the joke here? What are we doing?
And then Carapax just kills him.
Yeah. Like, did they just want to have the guy who voiced the dog in Last Wish in their movie? Because they're like, oh, we have a connection to the Last Wish. Like, it's just a strange character to have in the movie.
Imagine people like making Harvey Guillen ranking tier lists, and they put Dr. Sanchez below his performance as Odie in the fucking Garfield movie.
Oh, was he in the Garfield movie?
Yes, he plays Odie in the Garfield movie.
Wow, moving up in the world, I see. From one orange cat movie to the next.
Yep. So that kind of just goes over all the villains in Blue Beetle. For the most part, not very good. Yeah. So that just kind of leaves us with the main characters, which character-wise, they definitely have their moments, like a lot of their moments. But I feel like that Jaime's character work, especially in the general chemistry between the family, I think is what carries it up for me.
I definitely buy them as a family. I don't care for them as a family, but I can see that they do act like a family would in this kind of movie.
Right. I will say with George Lopez's character, Rudy Reyes, that's actually an OC made for the movie. And it's also really weird because like a lot of the jokes that they do with him are super weird. Like the testicle joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he's lashing out at Jenny, which at least it makes sense for his character since he's kind of a bit of a crack papa still. And then you also have the Batman's a fascist line, which people just fucking flipped out over when the first trailer dropped.
Yeah, I remember just being weirded out by that line. I'm like, what does that even mean?
No.
I will say he does have now that you say that, he does have a lot of weird jokes in this movie and weird lines, but because it's George Lopez, he kind of makes them work a little bit. Like, I still think Batman is a fascist is a stupid line, but just hearing George
Yeah.
Lopez say Batman's a fascist, I'm just like, you know what, that's kind of funny.
Yeah. And also to give him this, there are still quite a lot of scenes that are really funny. I still think the funniest part in the movie for me is Jaime stealing Rudy's car, which normally wouldn't be that funny. But then you have George's entire performance during that sequence.
He's like screaming like a monkey. It's like
And it's and when Jaime actually comes back with the car, you have this whole panning shot of Palmyra City where he screams his ass off, and then Jaime's covering his head inside.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's George Lopez, so he just knocks it out of the park.
Yeah. Again, I think George Lopez does make this movie a little more tolerable for me because it is like what he's saying is not necessarily funny. Like we were saying with Victoria Susan Sarandon, she's a good actress, but she doesn't have the juice to make me really follow along and care about what she's saying. Whereas George Lopez, he can take this kind of weird material and make it entertaining enough that I'm paying attention.
Right. And like speaking of actors, I think the other one in the movie that really, really sold me was obviously Jolo Mariduena as Jaime Reyes, which absolutely perfect casting. It's like the single best casting in the entire DCU, if I'm being honest.
I thought he was adorable as Blue Beetle. I thought it worked.
Yeah, adorable is a very good word. And I honestly just really feel like that they did Jaime's character justice, though. It's also like really funny talking about Jello Mariduana. Do I bring ghost lore onto too many movies? That is the question.
Let's not say we didn't.
Yeah. Okay, let's just say that one ghost got in the pants a little too much.
Okay.
And leave it at that.
I like leaving it at that. But but again, I think for what he's given, he's not bad. I don't think there's any bad acting in this movie. I think it is just a matter of I don't necessarily connect with any of these characters. I could see other people connecting to these characters, but I myself am just like, I don't know. I feel like when I think of a character who's kind of whisked into this superhero role, I prefer characters like Spider-Man or even Shazam more so. I don't know. I feel like there's more for me to kind of connect with, and at least I don't know. I don't know. There's just something about those other movies where I feel like there's something there. Whereas here, I feel like maybe if movies like Spider-Man and Shazam hadn't come out before this, maybe I'd be fine with this.
Yeah. Well, maybe Shazam until Fury of the Gods came out.
Well, yeah. When I say Shazam, I'm talking about the 2019 movie.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, let's just say ever since my last episode with you on my own podcast, my opinions on Fury of the Gods went down a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of leaving it at there. I do definitely get that, since Blue Beetle just kind of came out at a time where a lot of people just kind of see this template a lot, and a lot of people are just done with it, myself included.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it is kind of hard to just go to the theater and see the next superhero film when it's like, okay, what do I have to watch to catch myself up with? I'll give Blue Beetle credit. It does remain kind of self-contained. Like, that's one of the things I do respect the hell out of it with, is that it is a self-contained story and it's not trying to be part of a grander multiverse story or a grander, like, it's not trying, you don't have a scene at the end of this movie where Wonder Woman shows up and it's just like, Blue Beetle, come join the Justice League. It's like, no, none of that. It
Right.
ends where it needs to regarding its own storyline.
Yeah, if I'm being honest, I think that's like a huge problem that I've seen like a lot of DC adaptations have as of late, even just outside the movies. I mentioned My Adventures with Superman earlier, and that I think that has it especially bad since the showrunners explicitly stated that they want to bring in multiple aspects of the DC universe into that show and not just Superman. And
Ew.
if it's just like cute little references, it's fine, but Hal, let me ask you something. Is Deathstroke a Superman villain?
Isn't he a Batman villain or
Well, more so Teen
Teen
Titans villain.
Titans? Yeah.
Yeah. Let me ask you again then. Is Amanda Waller a Superman villain?
Oh God, no. She's Suicide Squad.
Then please tell me why they are the two most recurring villains in the entire show, even outbeating Lex, Brainiac, Livewire, and Parasite.
Okay, even I know that Brainiac and Lex Luthor are major Superman characters. So I guess maybe because Suicide Squad and like what was Deathstroke in the last couple of years that was popular enough that he gets to be they're shoving him into a Superman show.
I mean, he did have his own movie. He did appear in Titans.
He had his own.
Deathstroke is just like a consistently big deal,
Was there
but
a Deathstroke movie?
yeah, there was actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Am I in the Berenstein universe? When did this happen? Wait a minute.
It's so funny because I made it like a big inside joke in 2021 and then just kind of dropped it.
I'm actually going crazy. Is there a Deathstroke movie? Wait a minute.
There is a Deathstroke movie. It's called Deathstroke Knights and Dragons.
Oh, is it an animated film?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's probably why I've never heard of it. Okay, that makes more sense to me. Yeah, he got part of the DCAU. Okay, yeah.
But yeah, literally, don't even try asking me. Okay, you can ask me why they put Deathstroke in my event in the Superman show. It's not even for like any particular Superman lore reasons. They literally just said that they really liked Deathstroke and that's it.
Oh boy, yeah. I mean, the only other Deathstroke appearance I can think of was in Teen Titans Go to the Movies. So, but yeah,
Fantastic.
that does sound frustrating though. How they're just shoving in these other characters, and it's like, yeah, from the sounds of it, it sounds like all the characters in this Blue Beetle movie are either from the comics or, in George Lopez's case, they just wanted to have George Lopez in the movie. But it's like, okay, at least he's not like, I don't know, fucking Sinestro or something. He's just George Lopez. I was about to say George Lucas. Oh my god.
Oh my god. But yeah, it's like, especially just watching through more shit like My Adventures with Superman and Suicide Squad is a Kai. It's just really nice just seeing something more self-contained. Like they're
Yeah.
actually just adhering to the source material that you're adapting, and you're not trying to branch out in these really crazy and stupid ways. Like I actually got a Blue Beetle movie with Blue Beetle villains. What a fucking concept.
yeah, exactly.
I will say, another thing that kind of makes that movie stand out for me is I think another reason why movies like Wonder Woman and Black Panther stood out for others, but I think it's in Blue Beetle's case they commit to it more. It's representation of Latino culture. I think I'm part Latino myself, and I actually think it was very well done in Blue Beetle.
Yeah, I can see that because you have that great big family aspect. You have the one thing I noticed is that a lot of the time the characters will kind of speak English and then go back into speaking Spanish mid sentence while speaking English and then go back into speaking English. It felt a lot like that's something I've never really seen done so in movies as often, but that's something I've experienced in real life.
Right. And then you also have like the general setting of Blue Beetle, which not only makes sense for the movie, but also is just generally really nice. Like Palmyra City in general is just Miami but high tech. But then you have like the Edge Keys, which is basically this which really encapsulates the culture insanely well.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to like Black Panther, where I don't really understand how Wakanda's geography works at all. And in the case of both Black Panther and Wonder Woman, how do you even like just put a whole country or island in the middle, put a whole country or an island, set up an invisible cloak, and leave it at that? You don't even have anything preventing people from breaking in.
Yeah, guys, it was here the whole time. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
Oh my god.
At least with Palmyra City, it's just they're not like, oh, or like in Black Adam, where they're just like, oh, this high tech city that was here the whole time. It's like, no, it wasn't. Whereas like Palmyra City, it's like, okay, this is just a normal fucking city that was just there. It's like, yeah, okay, I can buy that.
Yeah, I still think that Kondak and Black Adam was just really fucking poorly handled, because on top of the shitty version of Intergang, literally everyone has accents except for Black Adam, because he's played by The Rock.
Yeah, well, The Rock doesn't do accents. I guess.
Yeah, because The Rock doesn't give a fuck. He's too busy.
He's too cool.
He's too busy getting back onto WWE and crashing it into the ground.
He's too busy saving Santa Claus in Red 1. BT Dubs, I'm so looking forward to that, because it looks like my kind of so terrible movie that I would love to see it. Yeah.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
I know. William showed me the trailer and it's just like, I'm like, all right, this looks shitty enough that I would actually enjoy it.
Yeah. I feel like also I will say though, like culturally speaking, and how that connects to discourse, like the most that I've really seen for Blue Beetle is actually, this is another, it kind of leads to another side topic that I kind of want to get into, where Blue Beetle stirred up some controversy after release, but it wasn't because of the movie, it was because of Nerdrotic.
Which one's Nerdrotic again?
The guy with the beard and the glasses, who has like the yellow profile picture.
Okay.
And the glasses on front of it.
Right. When you said the guy with the beard and the glasses, I'm like, well, that really narrows it down, doesn't it? But no, yeah, okay, yeah, I've heard of Nerdrotic. I haven't watched his videos because I don't know. There's just so many YouTubers nowadays. I can't watch them all.
The thing with Nerdrotic is that, before getting into the controversy and like how people react to him, I'm gonna make this clear. I don't like Nerdrotic.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like his general advertising method or how he promotes his videos. And I think some of the stuff that he posts on Twitter especially is very, very questionable. And in Blue Beetle's case, that was kind of the thing where he was called out most, because a lot of people kind of like to group him into this subcategory of people called grifters, where we all know grifters, just basically people talking about certain stuff just to spark up controversy and nothing else. So now, like,
right, and not having anything, and not really having anything of worth saying, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't like using that term for a lot of people,
sure,
including him, which I will get into. But basically, what got him into controversy for his Blue Beetle video was specifically how he promoted it. Where on the thumbnail, he also, along with Jaime, he had a taco and the Mexican maid from Family Guy, and then the title of the video is literally Blue Beetle, let's taco about it.
That's terrible.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna take this brief moment just share it to you?
Oh, please.
Because I swear to God, it's even funnier. It's even funnier in picture.
I gotta see this.
Okay, I just need to find the image that's actually good quality first. Oh my God.
Yeah. Don't you hate that when like thumbnails, you try to look them up and they're like so deep fried from like overexposure and just like clicking, and it's just like, well, damn it.
Yeah, this is because the link leads to Reddit, but
no. That's so bad. That's so stupid. Oh, Consuela from fucking Family Guy. Is that her name, Consuela? I actually don't remember. I was thinking it was the fucking joke from Family Guy where it's the maid who has like the little fat son who's diabeto. It's just like, no diabeto, roll back to kitchen.
Oh, I remember that one. Started with Blue Beetle, and now we're talking about fucking Family Guy jokes.
It always comes back to Family Guy.
Oh
yeah, no, this is definitely in bad taste. This is something I would do as a joke, but like I wouldn't really mean it. Whereas from the looks of this looks like he's doing it unironically.
Right. Yeah. And here's the thing about Nerdrotic. Stuff like this is the whole reason why I don't like him. Yeah. It's because of shit like this.
Yeah.
But then you also have, at the same time, I'm not of a particular crowd that I did start to notice recently that especially constantly shit on Nerdrotic, and this really pisses me off, not because I like him, but because these are the exact people that call him a grifter and that he's only doing it for outrage and bait. And then they respond to him with outrage and bait.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. He's getting exactly what he wants. In that case, the best thing to do to avoid these kinds of people is avoid these kinds of people. Like, don't even watch their video. Just like say, like, YouTube has an option where you can be like, hey, don't recommend these videos to me, and then you never really see them again.
Yeah. I found like a whole thread on Nerdrotic the other day, and it was so fucking bad because it goes over like very basic points, but also most of the thread is just angrily responding to him, and then like one of the final posts is just getting mad at Nerdrotic for his fan base and how they're ruining the vibe of the fandom. Which, let me make this completely clear, that is absolutely stupid, especially since Nerdrotic is mainly popular on Twitter and YouTuber. If you don't want someone like him fucking up your vibe, just literally switch to Tumblr. It's the most fandom friendly website.
Yeah. I feel like, oh man, we're living in a timeline where Tumblr is received better than Twitter, which, granted, totally deserved. Anything is better than Twitter, let me tell you.
Yeah. And even then, it's like, from what I've heard from Nerdrotic on others, even though a lot of this stuff is done in bad taste, I still feel like just actively calling him completely bigoted and just rude towards media is a big stretch. Mm-hmm. For one thing, from what I've heard, a lot of his, whenever he's been on EFAP, he's actually been pretty reasonable, all things considered. And then there's also like other stuff to take into account, like one of his favorite shows from I think last year or before then was the One Piece live action series, which mostly consisted of actors and actresses who weren't white. So if you just want to completely call him a white supremacist, then go right ahead. It's like calling Critical Drinker completely racist, even though he has made some valid points against Hollywood, and he does actively praise stuff that isn't starring crackers, like Godzilla -1.
Crackers. Yeah. I mean, that's why I never try to engage with these kinds of people. you know, because it's like I don't actively watch their stuff, so I can't really judge them as people. It's just I don't really like their content, so I just won't watch them. So it's like I don't really necessarily need to call them grifters or racists or white supremacists. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I don't. That doesn't really concern me. It's like
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know them as people. I only know them as content creators. I just don't particularly like their content, so I'm not gonna watch them. It's like, okay, whatever.
And I just don't even like want to get into like a lot of those arguments or shitting pile with those people because it's like, okay, I already understand why you don't like these people, and I totally get it, but at the same time, you hate them for a reason where you're not even giving them the benefit of the doubt, and you're not even going to offer constructive criticism. It's because they're on the opposite political spectrum that you are. So why do I need to add to this pile more?
Right, exactly. It's just it's the kind of stuff that has nothing to do with film analysis. It's just like, why are we talking about these people in this way? It's like it's a waste of time for everybody involved.
Yeah. I think that's like that was definitely something that's just kind of been on my mind a lot, and it's like something that I did kind of think about with like Blue Beetle more.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we really tacoed about it.
Damn it.
Oh. See? It's a joke. I don't actually mean it.
Oh God. Okay. So, I don't think I even have much else to say on Blue Beetle except that I still think that a lot of the character decisions in that movie are still really fucking dumb. Like, why, Milagro, why did you get your brother fired over wanting to use the nicer toilet?
Yeah, that's one of those like, oh, haha, they got fired for using the nice bathroom. And it's like, I don't know. I feel like you could have had a better interaction between the two characters, because that basically was a scene set up so then Jaime can like talk to Jenny, so then Jenny can be like, oh, come to headquarters tomorrow, and then he goes there, and that's when he gets the burger box with the scarab in it.
Right.
Yeah.
And Jenny also kind of makes her own stupid decisions because, like, why would you try to steal the scarab the exact same day you have a job interview with Jaime?
Yeah, it's one of those weird, just for the plot's sake, and it's just like, it's kind of dumb.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say on Blue Beetle, though. I think I did do a good job. Oh, wait, fuck, there is one more thing I want to talk about.
Oh?
Because it's literally my favorite part of the whole movie.
Yeah.
It's basically Jaime's arc and how it focuses on going into young adulthood, because my personal favorite scene in the movie and one of my favorite scenes in all of DC is his first conversation with his dad.
I did like that scene because it was like kind of quiet. It was just the two of them. And I like it because it isn't the only scene between them. Because I feel like, you know, later on in the movie, he has a heart attack and dies. And then they have the scene where he actually sees them in the netherworld, like the afterlife or whatever. It's very Black Panther-ish, but like, I feel like that scene would not be as strong if that was the only scene. You know, that's been something that I've kind of criticized with movies in the past, where it's like, oh, you have these two characters interact, but only in one scene, and it's in the third act. Whereas with this movie, you actually have him have a conversation with his father before the emotional third act scene. And so it makes their conversations feel like, oh, these are actually characters who interact with each other on the daily. It's not just specifically focused on in the third act, you know?
Yeah. And it's also just like the general message of the conversation that I really, really love. It's basically, Jaime feels like he failed his family, especially since he's been struggling to get a job and help them out. But then Alberto reassures him by saying that stuff like the house, the whole car shop, even when they lose those aren't the destination that they're trying to reach. They're just stops. And they don't know what the destination is, but it just matters that they're in it as a family.
Yeah.
And
There is that
what's
kind of
yeah,
wholesome, like actually wholesome family values kind of message with this film. And I do buy that for people to kind of connect with. Absolutely.
right. And then you also have like the other part of the speech where you also just kind of go into the purpose of someone's life. And the thing is that many of us don't know what our purpose is, but usually, most times, every time, our purpose is just in the moment. And in that moment, it's Alberto being there for Jaime to comfort him and help him on his journey.
Yeah.
I really love that.
Yeah, that is nice. I wish it was in a movie where I connected more with the characters, but the fact that this movie does have that is nice. You know, I feel like there's a lot of nihilistic kind of negative stories in a lot of superhero movies where you're just like, ugh, this is so drab and boring and
Yeah.
none of it means anything. Whereas like at least with here, there's something there. There's you know, these characters are actually good people. They're actually heroes. Like, you know, Jaime does have that kind of conflict where he doesn't know if he wants to be a superhero, but he is inherently a good person. So at least the idea of him becoming a superhero is not that out of the ordinary.
Are you sure about that? Tell that to Zod snapped neck.
Krypton had its chance. Good times. Good times.
Yeah. This movie's still better than Man of Steel, by the way.
I think so, yeah. I think it's hard for me to tell because, again, I don't, even though I rate this movie kind of low, I don't hate it, is the thing. Like, it's not a hateable movie. It's just not particularly interesting to me.
Yeah, that I definitely feel. Whereas, like, Man of Steel is funny the last 40 minutes of it, and then
Yeah.
it's just miserable throughout the whole thing. And I also hate that movie 100% for just gassing up General Zod even more. I fucking hate that guy so much.
It is genuinely boring. It's a shame because General Zod is probably the only character I do actually give a shit about, and that's mostly thanks to Michael Shannon actually giving a pretty decent performance, all things considered. And I love just hearing Michael Shannon talk about that character as if like when the Flash was coming out and they brought him back and he's just like, it's the fucking Flash, who gives a shit, man. But then you hear him like talk about like his work on Man of Steel and he's like, you know, me and Zach, we were really just kind of trying to figure out this character. And it's like, okay, I don't see any of that in the final product, but the fact that he at least had fun with Zack Snyder on Man of Steel, it's like, okay, that's at least wholesome.
Yeah,
it just doesn't translate in the final product.
Yeah, which is also just kind of depressing since it's just really weird because General Zod is literally my least favorite Superman villain of all time. This even includes the really low tier Superman villains, and Man of Steel completely encapsulates why. And I'm not even sure if I want to completely get into that conversation now.
I feel like that should be more saved for an actual Man of Steel episode.
Right. Which, hey, I could literally do that on because I have a habit of rewatching Man of Steel a lot. Brian's gonna kill me.
I know exactly what he'd say in this situation. Let's watch Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, is there?
Or maybe, yeah. Or no. Maybe I tell him. I watch Man of Steel. And then he says, oh, well, at least Man of Steel wasn't directed by someone who supports terrorism, like James Gunn.
That's unironically one of my favorite running jokes is that how much Brian hates James Gunn. For no particularly valid reason. He just hates James Gunn now. It's great.
Look,
it's
Brian,
fantastic.
I know you're going to be watching this. It's been 10 years. You've got to let it go.
It wasn't your fault.
I, okay, yeah. I don't have much else to say on Blue Beetle. I do own the 4K of it that I actually bought the same day that I saw -1 in theaters, which was really cool. And
Big day.
I'm personally keeping the 4K. Hal, I think I already know what your answer is going to be.
I don't own it. I have an HBO Max subscription. Sorry, a Max subscription. No, fuck you. It's an HBO Max subscription. So if I ever have the need of ever watching it again, I guess I'll just watch it through there. But I won't actively watch it as often as you will. But you know what? That's fine.
Yeah, true.
I still have our Shazam Blu-ray from our last episode.
Right.
So
also that's fair because if I were trans and working for Warner Brothers, David Zaslav would probably dead name me. So let's dead name HBO Max.
All right, let's run away like the Flash into our next film, Flash Gordon. Wait a minute. Yeah.
Flash.
So, Flash Gordon is a film I own on DVD, the Savior of the Universe edition DVD. It's one I can't remember where I got this, but ultimately it doesn't matter. It's a really fucking cool DVD, but more on that later. Anyway,
Ooh.
I really wanted to talk about it. You really wanted to talk about it, and I'm glad we have this opportunity to talk about it. So, Flash Gordon, Chaos, what'd you think?
It tapped more ass than Ezra Miller probably did on Hawaii. In all seriousness, it's so fucking good. It is so good.
I had a lot of fun.
It.
Yeah. I had a lot of fun. It was really cheesy, but the kind of cheese that I love, you know?
Yeah. It's like a weird kind of cheesy to me because how do you make such a cheesy 80s movie and to cut straight to the chase right away? It has better visuals, music, acting, and overall writing than most of the Hollywood stuff that we're getting nowadays.
I mean, yeah, because there is this sense of fun to be had with this film. Because it's trying to be a modernized adaptation of a 1930s serial that sort of semi-inspired Star Wars. And then I'm sure, you know, because that's one of the things that's pointed to whenever people talk about George Lucas being inspired by, like, oh, the old sci-fi of the 50s, 40s, and 30s. And yeah, Flash Gordon was a serial originally. Well, it was a comic originally. I don't even remember when, but way back in the day, like early comics.
Oh my god, that explains the lizard people. Lizard people.
Oh.
He saw the lizard people in the comics, and then he went, "Oh, Steve, look at all those Gungas."
I'm gonna make these into Gungas. Yeah, exactly. But
no, George, no Gungas,
no Gungas, George. But I'm gonna put the Gungas on Coruscant. But so Flash Gordon inspired Star Wars. That's one of those fun film facts. And so it's kind of interesting that this movie came out in 1980, peak Star Wars time. So they're like, well, we got to make an adaptation of the thing that inspired Star Wars and cash in on it. And even with that in mind, I feel like this movie is still able to be its own thing, because it does feel like the kind of cheesy sci-fi film you'd be getting from the late 70s, early 80s that is heavily inspired by Star Wars. But
yeah, oh my god, even just talking about it, like, visually, if I just looked at Flash Gordon on its own, I wouldn't even tell if it was trying to bank off of Star Wars or not.
Yeah,
holy smokes.
Oh yeah, no, it does things better than what the average Star Wars ripoff at the time would be doing. Like, this is not like a Star. Oh, what the fuck was that movie called? Fucking, it had Christopher Plummer in it. It was a Mystery Science Theater. Star something or other, but you know it's a Star
Wars.
No, well, maybe, you know what, we'll just say so.
Yeah,
Space
maybe.
Wars. We'll spread it misinformation on the internet.
Or Star Blast.
Maybe, I don't know. you know, there's about a million of these kinds of movies where they're just...
Turkish Star Wars.
It wasn't Turkish Star Wars, but that is a thing. But anyway, what I'm trying to say is that, yeah, this movie achieves more so than those movies because this actually has a distinct visual style to it that is
Right.
fantastic. Yeah, the production design, the costumes, the makeup, the everything. It is incredible looking. It's so unique.
Yeah, the thing that honestly still sticks with me most about Flash Gordon is like the whole background, because when you're like making a movie in space, it's like so easy to just make the background black and add these white little dots as stars, maybe a few planets.
Mm-hmm.
But in Flash Gordon, they just take a completely different direction, just going with this almost surreal vaporwaveness to it.
Almost, yeah. Yeah, there's like these color, like the colors in this movie just really pop out, and it really makes this more of an alien world than you would expect on like something like Earth. Yeah, no, it's
Right.
It's fantastic. It's fantastical, is what it is. Like, it's very fantasy-esque.
You also have like the usage of like the colors on the set, where
Yeah,
like you notice how like Star Wars for the Death Star especially, it has like a lot of grays,
a lot
which
of
makes
grays,
sense
a lot of
since
blacks.
which makes sense for the story, because
Yeah.
the Death Star and the Empire is meant to be very imperialist. But then you kind of contrast that with Flash Gordon, and this whole empire is like soaked in reds and yellows.
Yeah,
Not kind of representing what Ming the Merciless is like,
he's very
and
hellish.
what he looks in the most. All that glitters is gold to him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's not even that it looks good. There's actual theming behind it.
Right. Speaking of like Ming the Merciless, I think that like also kind of gets into the characters a bit, and the general plot,
Mm-hmm.
because the way that Flash Gordon kicks off is like really, really funny.
Yeah, oh,
You have a perfect introduction scene with Flash where he's like checking in on the pilots of a plane, how things are doing, and one of them asks him for an autograph, which lets you know how big of a deal he is on Earth.
Yeah.
And then because of like the bad weather that Ming is causing on Earth, they literally just crash into a mad scientist's house,
Yeah.
and then Flash and Dale just rocket off to they literally just rocket off to space because the evil scientists made them.
Yeah. Well, okay, so yeah, there's a lot to say on that. So Flash Gordon is the main character. He is the quarterback for the New York Jets, which I know this really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things because we never see him play actual football. We see him play football in the movie, but we'll get to that. But like, I just find it funny that out of all the NFL teams they could have picked, they went with the New York Jets, which is one of the lamest teams in the NFL.
Yeah. Like, and also just hearing New York Jets really pisses me off, because I'm just conditioned to sports teams via movies now, and whenever I hear New York Jets, my mind immediately goes to New York Giants.
Yeah, well, the Giants are the more popular team from what I met. I've met actual New York Giants fans.
Madagascar for that. I 100% thank Madagascar for that.
All hail
the New York Giants.
It's such a good line. Yeah. It's just weird because I've never met a New York Jets fan in my life. Not to derail the podcast a little, but for the longest time, I kind of gaslit people into believing my grandpa was a New York Jets fan because growing up, my grandpa is a New York Yankees fan and my uncle is a New York Mets fan. But then my uncle is also a New York Giants fan. But I never knew.
Love the Mets, baby.
But I never knew what my grandpa was a team of in football. So I kind of just filled in the blank and assumed, oh, if my uncle likes the Giants, then that must mean my grandpa likes the Jets. And so for years, I kind of just gaslit myself and a couple of my family members into believing my grandpa was a Jets fan. And I finally one day kind of confronted him. I'm just like, hey, grandpa, you're a Jets fan, right? And he's like, hell no. And I'm like, oh, that's awkward. So even my grandpa, who's a diehard New York sports fan, he does not care for the Jets. It's like,
God.
So anyway, look, I know it was the early 80s, so my beloved Patriots were not the team that they eventually became, but I don't know. Like, you could have picked any other team other than the New York Jets is all I'm trying to say.
And then you also have like the whole thing with the rocket ship.
Yeah.
Like how did Bro even build that?
Yeah, so what is it? Dr. Zarkov. So Flash so they crash the plane. So the pilots disappear. Then Flash and Dale take control of the plane and they crash land into the evil scientist lab of Dr. Zarkov.
Look, Mom, I made an actual rocket based off the macaroni prototype.
Yeah, yeah. Eh. and so then Dr. Zarkov's just like, oh sweet, so you guys are gonna go into space with me, and they're like, no the fuck we're not, and he's like, yes you are. He pulls a gun at them. And so then they just go into the rocket, and then Flash starts fighting Dr. Zarkov, and he punches him, and Dr. Zarkov hits his head on a button in the rocket ship, which causes him to launch into space. That's like a joke in the SpongeBob episode where they go into Sandy's rocket. It's like they're just fighting, and then that's what kicks off the plot. Is his Flash punches Dr. Zarkov in the face, and his head hits a button, and that just launches the rocket into space. It's absurd, but I love it.
What's even funnier to me is that he pulls out the gun and he doesn't use it once.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, it's just so insane.
Oh my god!
But it's great. Like that again. Like that's the kind of cheesy, dumb, like super corny fun that that I really want to see more in movies. It's like, this is absurd. Like, how do you write, oh, they crash land a plane into an evil scientist's lab and he forces them at gunpoint to go into a rocket, and then they just accidentally launch into space? Like, that is funny. Like, that you would never see that written in a movie that is taking itself so seriously. But even then,
exactly.
I think this movie does take itself seriously enough that the seriousness is also charming, you know?
Right. And then you actually get to where they are in space in Ming's empire, where the intro scene to Ming and everyone else, like all the other races, is like really interesting to me, because not only do you also have all these Hawk people who literally just look like Hawkman.
Yeah.
Before Hawkman appeared in Black Adam, but also Ming's general literally looks like Doctor Doom if he dressed up as Nuclear Man from Superman 4.
Oh yeah, what was his name?
General Klytus.
Klytus, yeah, he was really cool. I was like, oh, yeah. First of all, really cool, intimidating voice. First of all, for Klytus, but also, yeah, definitely. I really like his design. How he's like this. He has like this golden mask, and it actually like articulates. It actually moved. I mean, it doesn't articulate, but like, I don't know, it's still cool looking, and I like his character. And yeah, he is like this diabolical general to Ming, who is also like this diabolical leader. Like, they're absurdly evil, these characters, but it's entertaining.
Yeah, before getting into Ming, I actually think that General Klytus is probably like one of the best secondary villains that I've seen in any movie, because he actually feels threatening, and a lot of his screen time alongside Ming actually feels really even, as opposed to Carapax, where you just kind of feel like he doesn't have that much agency. Klytus is an evil bastard.
Yeah, exactly. And again, and he also has one of the coolest death scenes in this movie, where he just like falls onto the spikes and then his eyes pop out of his head. It's like, oh, that's cool. I like that.
Yeah. And then you also have Ming, which is like, even from his intro scene, I already went, yeah, this is one of the best villains I've seen in any movie. And I still stand by that, because they really knocked it out of the park with Ming the Merciless, in my opinion. It's not even that he has particularly memorable acting like Klytus does. He's just they do such a good job setting him up as like this massive threat, and you feel every ounce of power that he has and what he's like.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that, yeah, it's not Max von Sydow's best role, but it certainly is an interesting role to see him in. He's a really good actor. I really love Max von Sydow and everything I see him in.
I think what really interests me about Ming is how he just epitomizes a lot of the tropes that superheroes fight against, like the evil dictator and sexist dictator. But it's also like how they use those tropes.
Yeah.
Like Ming doesn't just you don't just see Ming conquer planets. You literally see him force people to give him tributes, thus draining them of their supplies more because of this insane power that we have already seen him have on Earth. And then you also see how he treats woman, which he basically keeps a lot of them around for pleasure. And then around the third act of the movie, he's basically trying to force Dale to marry him.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I do love how there's that, like, because we don't see him, but we hear him because they have like the scene at the very, very beginning before they get into the credits where you have him approaching Earth and he's just like, what is this measly planet called Earth? And he starts like doing all these natural disasters on there. He's like, oh, I love playing with my toys or something like that. Like, that's great. But then his actual introduction is, yes, when we're having the scene of all these different other tribes, other armies, like trying to pay tribute to him. So you have that one guy, that one prince who's like in the gold, and he tries to appease to Ming, but then ultimately he does try to assassinate him, but he can't because Ming is too powerful and causes
Exactly.
One thing I actually really like that I wanted to point out is when he pulls the sword out of the guy, implying that he's dead now. You know, the sword that Ming has like blue blood on it. It's like this blue paint, but it looks like it actually came. I don't know. It was like a really cool kind of sleight of hand way of showing alien blood, where it's like, oh, this isn't normal everyday red blood. No, this is blue blood. This is blue alien blood. I really like that little detail.
I also just really liked how that scene progressed, because it starts off with this like prince telling Ming that they don't really have anything physical to tribute.
Yes.
But they can tribute him with undying loyalty.
That's right.
And so then Ming says, "Is that so? Then give me your life. Kill yourself."
Essentially, yeah. That's diabolical, but that's great.
Yeah, that like really shows how well Ming operates as a villain and what happens to these people if they don't pay proper tribute.
Yeah, exactly. And then that's when Flash, Dale, and Dr. Zarkov are kind of introduced to Ming, and that leads into the football fight.
Oh my, that's such. Not only is that a funny action scene, that is such a good action scene.
Yeah.
Because you actually see Flash try to put up a fight, which he kind of sort of does because of his quarterback experience, but he's clearly struggling until football-like ball is brought into play, and then he's able to apply his skills in football way more easily to the fight than he would have otherwise.
Yeah, it's a great way of showing like the main character able to use his own skills to get out of problems in this movie. It's just he's using football skills in war combat, but it works. It's like that is so absurd, but the fact that it goes that far and actually commits to it is what makes it work ultimately.
Right. And then also just kind of following that, it has spoiler alerts, I guess, but also has like one of the few instances of a fake out death that actually works for me.
That's right, because this is the scene where Flash is ultimately this leads into his first death scene, right? Well,
right.
I say first, his only death scene.
Yeah, the one where he's in the gas chamber.
Right. Yeah, I was like, oh, how is Flash going to get out of this one? And then it cuts to him like in a casket. It's like, oh, I guess he didn't get out of that one. It's like short movie.
Yeah, but then it's also like really interesting.
Yeah,
because he isn't just revived with bullshit. It's because the princess also brought in this guy to, I believe, inject him with something to help him bring him back to life from the gas.
Yeah.
And then gives him a kiss to give him more loyalty towards her. And then actually kind of believes her for a bit. And it's like, That's actually one of the few fake out deaths I've seen that also it actually plays off of the characters very well because of what we've seen of the princess. She's very into Flash, but Ming doesn't want to give Flash over to her, so she's taking matters into her own hands.
Yeah.
And it also makes sense on how she got to the casket on her own,
Right.
because even just ignoring the fact that there aren't guards in that scene initially, she has enough power in the kingdom to the point where she could theoretically redirect those guards away from the casket, thus leaving him unguarded.
It's still silly, but the movie has an interesting tone where it doesn't seem that out of the ordinary. I'm not just like, ah, you've totally lost me, movie. It's like, no, I think it is silly enough. And yeah, like you said, there is enough reasonings within canon, within the universe, where I'm like, I can buy this
Right.
happening.
Right.
One
Yeah.
thing that I kind of want to bring up is the reveal that Dr. Zarkov is not actually brainwashed. Which actually, so to get into that, they do show him being
Yeah.
brainwashed, where they're like going through all his memories, and there's that scene where like you see him like remember World War II, and you see Hitler, and I think it was Clytus who goes like, "Oh, that guy, he showed promise." It's like, well, now I know they're truly evil. Like it's just it's one of those like aliens interacting with Earth culture kind of thing, where it's like
Yeah.
it that can be very hit or miss for me, where you have like these aliens being like, what's this toaster you speak of, or you like, they try to treat everyday Earth culture as like kind of this weirdo thing, but like I feel like when done correctly, you can make it work. Like you were saying, there's that scene later on
Yeah.
where Prince Baron goes, tell me more of this
Tell me more about
Houdini.
this man. Yeah. Tell me more about this man Houdini.
Yeah, that's funny. And like, yeah, having the main villains point to Hitler, being like, now this guy, I can get behind this guy. It's like, that's absurd and hilarious, but also very in character for these evil
Yeah,
bastards.
and even then, when Zarkov eventually does get brainwashed, and they just make the cut to him going on about not getting brainwashed, there's actually like a little scene that kind of implies that he wasn't that the brainwash didn't work on him, which I actually thought was cool, especially when I was reading a bit of the plot synopsis while going with this movie. When they ask him what his name is, he eventually replies with Agent Zarkov, but his first reply is Han Zarkov.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And then he's like, sorry, Agent Zarkov. And then says like the number like 2333 or whatever. Like, yeah, he lists off a number to be like, oh, I'm just a number to these people. I'm supposed to be.
Right.
It's just insanely funny when it just hard cuts to them on like it hard cuts to Zarkov and Dale on like the speeder bike, and he's just like, and Dale's like, "Wow, Zarkov, it turns out you weren't actually brainwashed." And then he's like, "I was thinking of the Beatles."
It's
It's just so funny.
oh my god, the Beatles. Oh my god, I remember that.
Yeah.
It's okay. I think like one of the only issues that I do have with this movie is like some of the hard cuts,
Yeah.
where I don't really mind them personally because of how they're set up dialogue wise, and they do kind of keep the pace flowing, while also story wise they're just still kind of really weird.
Yeah, I think because the movie is so absurd anyway, I don't mind the weird editing. It just kind of it adds to the charm of the whole movie for me personally.
Right. And then I guess also just kind of to run down the plot a little more. You just also have like a lot of the other general plot beats, like just Flash going to this swamp world
Yeah.
and having to go through some trials before he's hunted down, and then up to the sky world where the Hawk people are, and there's some like really good action in a lot of these set pieces, and a lot of it is just really well scripted. But I feel like the main thing that really works for me with this is that it also kind of highlights my favorite part of this movie personally. You really see how even though all these other alien races and cultures are enslaved by Ming and hate being enslaved by him, they're also just really barbaric in general.
Yeah.
And not to say that in a rude way, but a lot of the stuff that they do is actively not that good.
No, yeah, like you were saying, it's very uh alienistic, or they're very alienating, where they don't trust each other, and so that's why Ming holds power over them, is because he's able to spread fear. He's able to fearmonger everybody. And so that's what makes Flash and all these human characters coming into their lives kind of showing them humanity, empathy, like genuine good-natured goodness. I guess, it's like
Normalize being a good person.
normalize being a good person. Exactly. It's simple and all that kind of stuff, but it's effective. Like, it's effective for what the tone of this movie is, and that is, it's supposed to be this fun, goofy romp.
Right. I feel like it's like Flash Gordon is like an example of one of those movies where you don't see Flash develop as a character too much, but you see the other characters develop around him.
Yeah, I think you can do that and still come across as having Flash be a fun character to be around. Like, Flash is a bit of a meathead, but he's not totally bland and forgettable. Like, I think he is kind of a fun character to be around.
Right. And speaking of fun characters to be around, you also have Dale.
I really like Dale. Yeah, no, I was really thinking about it, actually. I think, all things considered, she is a fun damsel character, because she never goes too far into completely pathetic damsel character, but they don't make her, like I think you had said this, like a bland plank of wood with nothing actually to offer.
Yeah, I was like going to say this in the Blue Beetle segment, but I feel like Hollywood, especially now, has like a really huge issue with not knowing how to write a lot of their female characters. And I think the biggest culprit of this is the MCU and how it affects fandom, because I was just replying to the fandom a bit. Yes, a lot of people like to generalize uh female-led MCU projects, especially, as being exceptionally awful. This would not be the issue on a consistent basis if female-led projects in the MCU weren't consistently terrible.
Yeah, there is this weird feeling I get where I feel as though a lot of modern Hollywood films are kind of afraid to write women interestingly. It's like they're really just afraid to go too far one way or the other, where they just have to be like, no, they have to be these ultra serious planks of wood all the time. It's like, no, you can have a character be a bit of a damsel. There's nothing wrong with that. You just can't go too far where they're completely useless and it becomes annoying. It's like, that's why I think Dale is such an interesting character. She is that damsel character, but she has moments where she's able to take care of things herself, but she's also a fun character regardless. Like, I'm never annoyed by her.
And her relationship with Flash is very adorable.
Yeah.
Like, even before like the plot really kicks into high gear, even when they're like first meeting, you have stuff like Flash carrying her off a plane bridal style, and then just them cuddling together a bit when they're inside the rocket. It's really good stuff.
Yeah. I want to be clear though, I don't think Dale is like the greatest written female character ever made. It's just, I'm not annoyed by her, and yes, considering what we've seen nowadays, I don't feel as though the writers are afraid to write her in this movie. I feel like they are genuinely like, oh, how can we make this character more fun than just your typical, like, because, this is based off a serial from the 30s, and I did watch the very first episode of Flash Gordon of the serial. I'll get to that later because that has to do with the DVD I have here. And yes, Dale is a bit of a ditzy damsel in distress kind of character, where her only role is to scream in the movie, because that's all women's roles were in movies, was they have to scream at the scary thing happening, and then the big strong man comes in and saves everybody. It's like, yeah, that, I get it, you want to not do that, but also going in the exact extreme opposite direction is also not good either.
Yeah, I will say characters like Lois Lane, especially just kind of show how the trope can really work well if done right.
Yeah.
And there's scenes with Dale in the movie that I just find really fun, when she's even though she's in this position. My personal favorite scene with her is when she's kind of going around the castle taking out the guards, and yeah, and she has this gun. And there's one detail that I really like. For the first two for the first two guards where she uses the gun, she's clearly uncomfortable shooting at them with it because of their screams.
Yeah.
So for the third guard, she just beats the guard with the gun, doesn't shoot at him.
Yeah. Yeah, the guards by the way look really cool. They look like Peace slash Necron 99 from Wizards, but like they also sound like when they scream, they kind of have this like weird sound to them. They sound like the fucking bug creature that Obi-Wan fights in Attack of the Clones.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. That's all what I can like connect it to in terms of for
Mm.
people who haven't watched it as to what they sound like.
Yeah. Um. So then, with like the rest of the movie, obviously Glidus gets killed, and then the third act of the movie really kicks off.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, I think this is the part of the movie where obviously I'm still really invested, but obviously this is where like a lot of the action stuff takes place. And to be fair, I think that a lot of the stuff done with the sets, especially the big spaceship, is very impressive. And if there's one thing I really want to compliment this movie on, it's that it is consistently tense. I love the tension in this movie. I always consistently believe that there are characters that, or depending on the scene, there are characters that could die at any given moment.
Yeah, yeah.
You have like the scene in the swamp region where Flash is putting his hands through each of the stumps
Yeah,
or
there's
holes.
there's this really interesting part of the movie where like so in it's Prince Baron's world where it's like the Dagobah Endor of the movie.
Andor.
Yeah,
Andor.
because it's very swampy at the bottom, but then there's like these trees that are like the forest moon of Endor from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
It's weird though because Flash Gordon came out before Empire and Jedi.
Yeah. I just also kind of thought about it because, Endor, that kind of sounds like a show you've been watching as of late, wink, wink, wink.
Oh, that's
nudge,
right.
Nudge, nudge.
Yeah, I've finally been watching Andor. That's right. I have nothing to say on it. It's good, but I have nothing truly analytical to say about it as of yet. I'll get back to you guys on that. But yeah, so there's this really interesting this like tree stump that has holes in it, and inside is like this poisonous scorpion kind of creature, and you're supposed to stick your hand in there, and hopefully it won't sting you.
Yeah.
Which is a terrible game. But so there's a scene where Prince Baron and Flash are kind of playing Russian roulette where they're sticking their hands in, hoping they won't get stung. And this is when Flash uses this opportunity to use his quick wits about him, and he fakes getting stung by the scorpion, but you don't know that yet. He's just like, and then Prince Baron's just like, I'll give you a quick death, and is about to stab him. But then Flash takes his sword. It's just like, tricked you, Baron.
Yeah. It's like really funny.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Yeah, but also like the other funny thing is that you mentioned both Andor and Russian roulette, and the first thing that I thought of when you first mentioned Andor, well, aside from Andor, is that one South Park joke where Cartman dresses up as Hitler and goes, "Go back to Andor, you stupid Wookiee."
Oh, Cartman.
Oh. But anyways, yeah, you have that cool scene, and then you also have the cool scene where both Flash and Baron are fighting on this big platform where spikes are coming out of it. That also felt like a really tense scene with tons of stakes. and it was also choreographed and shot well. It also has like one of the best scenes in the movie where Baron is starting to fall down, but Flash offers to save his life, and that's what turns Baron over to the good side.
Yeah, because he actually shows genuine humanity to Baron, even though Baron was trying to kill him. Like that just shows you that Flash is a genuinely good guy, and he's willing to help people out, even if they were trying to kill him a second ago. It's like it shows you why he's the hero, why he's the main character of the movie. Isn't that a novel concept? A superhero in a super fun movie.
Right. And then you just kind of get to the third act where a lot of it is really good, but there's three scenes that consistently stick out to me throughout the entire third act.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from the action just generally being really good and the ship just looking fucking amazing. First off, you have the scene where Ming offers Flash to have his own kingdom, which I feel like was more interesting for me in terms of Ming's character, mainly because it was just really interesting seeing Ming offer it at all. Because beforehand, we've just seen him be a really ruthless character, and now you actually see maybe has like a bit of respect for Flash because he was willing to offer him this kingdom while he conquers Earth.
Right, exactly.
Then you also as the scene crashes into the wedding, you have Ming getting stabbed by the needle of the ship.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
And I think he
And
has
then
like green blood or something like that. He doesn't have like
right.
red.
Yeah. And then his powers start to fade. And then um the moment that he fades away, the timer on the ship reaches zero. And this leads to my absolute favorite part of the third act where when watching this, I thought that something really bad was going to happen and that the ship was going to blow up. But then everyone kind of reunites, but then you have the drone that worked for Ming the entire time flying in and staring Flash in the eye. And the only thing that he says is, "Well done, Flash. You saved your life. Have a nice day."
Yeah, he's like, "You saved your planet. Have a nice day." And Flash goes, "Yeah." And it's like a freeze frame, right?
Yeah, it's literally it's like the freeze frame in the fucking SpongeBob movie.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's so funny.
Oh, Shin Man, take me by the hand, lead me to the land that you understand.
I will say there's a part in the
Oh,
third act that I thought was really funny. It's like a very blink and you'll miss it, very split second kind of thing. So it's a scene where it cuts to the ship outside and then you have all the Hawk people surrounding it. There is a split second, I swear to God, where the Hawk people, the they hadn't been loaded into the scene yet. So for a split second, you don't see them. Like it's literally like a frame. They're not there, and then all of a sudden they appear because I guess they didn't edit it correctly. Like it's a very minor split, and you'll miss it. Like very split second, like blink and you'll miss it kind of type of scene. It was. I saw it. I was like, "Oh my god, that's hilarious! That a movie could like be released from a major studio and do something like that." Like, I don't know that if I saw a genuine mistake in a modern film, I'd be way more critical of it. But I feel like this movie is over 40 years old. I'm willing to forgive it because it's hilarious.
right. Yeah. And then it's just like a really nice ending in general, and also has one of the few interesting cliffhanger endings I've seen where it's not even a post-credit scene.
Yeah.
It's literally just Ming's ring being taken away. You hear his laugh, and then there's a question mark after the end.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's not really a Flash Gordon sequel at all, but probably for the best. But
Oh yeah.
still, that was really cool.
Yeah, it's a nice cheesy ending because it's just like, oh, what will happen next time? And it's like, yeah, we don't really need to know what happens next time. It's kind of like how The Incredibles ends, where it's like, yeah, you're setting something up, but we don't really need to see what happens. It's kind of implied what's going to happen.
I mean,
Just
we did.
the adventure continues.
I mean, we did see the adventure continue in Incredibles, and oh, Sorry. If I just remembered a bad movie for a moment, must have slipped my mind.
uh, yeah, no, Flash Gordon's a lot more fun than Incredibles 2. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's cheesy, but you know what? Because I feel like that's not the first movie to do the whole the end question mark, but it would certainly not be the last.
Right. Oh, there's one more thing we gotta talk about Flash Gordon before we get to your DVD.
Ooh.
One of the greatest music, one of the greatest movie themes ever made.
Oh, fucking Queen, dude. Yeah, like we have to mention that Queen, the actual literal band, Freddie Mercury, Brian May, those people, they did the score for this movie.
Yep. And oh my god, it's so good.
It's actually a lot of fun. Yes, I agree. It's such a yeah, because we know about the whole like Flash like theme song, like that obviously they did. But then yeah, I think they also did some of the score as well. And it is also like this late 70s, early 80s cheesy sounding synthy kind of rock score to it that works really well.
Right. I really gotta listen to more of Queen's music. I've listened to some of their songs.
Yeah.
I just think that Bohemian Rhapsody is just kind of okay, mostly good, but I'm not the biggest fan of it. But I do like, yeah,
Bohemian Rhapsody, the song, of course. The movie, I mean, the movie did put me on a bit of a downward spiral where I'm just like, maybe Queen's a little overrated. I feel like this movie's kind of making me appreciate Queen as an artistic voice more. Yeah, I think Bohemian Rhapsody, I was obsessed with that song in high school, so I'm kind of over it now. I feel like there are other better Queen songs out there. But Queen is a genuinely great band, I would say. Not my
yeah,
favorite. Obviously, I'm way more of a fan of bands like Pink Floyd than I am of Queen, but I still think Queen is a genuinely good band. And even if I do find a lot of
yeah.
their songs overrated, I still think they are hugely talented. And I mean, this is proof enough. Like, this is just a genuinely fun score, and it's a
And
genuinely
hey,
fun
I'm a Pink,
song.
yeah, and hey, I'm a Pink Floyd fan too. Well, you know,
Yeah, exactly. Pink Floyd's a great band.
hell yeah. I'm not sure if there's much else I want to talk about with this movie aside from, well, yeah, obviously the music slaps and we just went over that. So, unless something else pops into my mind, you want to talk about your DVD now?
Yeah, I'll talk about this Savior of the Universe edition DVD from 2007. It's so
Ooh.
first off, the packaging is really cool. I'll probably provide some video of this, but it's not a standard DVD. It's like one that opens up kind of like a box, and you just open it up, and there's the disc. It comes with this really cool postcard that I believe is drawn by Alex Ross, if I'm not mistaken. I know
Holy shit.
well, the cover is definitely drawn by Alex Ross. You can see it's signed. It's credited as Alex
Oh my
Ross.
god.
I
I
know.
need to
Yeah.
oh my god. I need to read more of Alex Ross's books and I know some people had a few choice words to say about him before, but Alex Ross's artwork is consistently amazing.
Yeah,
Holy
I've
god.
never read any of the comics he did, but I'm just familiar with like the images of the Justice League done in his style. You know, I grew up seeing those everywhere all the time, and I think they're genuinely really cool looking.
Yeah. Comic book wise, I could pretty much say this. He's literally the entire reason why people say that Kingdom Come it will only ever work as a comic book.
Hmm. Yeah, well,
Because
he is part of the bonus features because it's uh, listed as Alex Ross, renowned comic artist on Flash Gordon. Learn how Flash Gordon influenced this legendary artist both personally and professionally. So that'd be
holy god, oh my god, I really need to check that out.
yeah. You might be able to find it on YouTube. I can maybe it might be on YouTube. Who knows? But
Yeah, I can probably find it sometime.
yeah. But the other bonus materials I want to point out, this comes with in the first part of the original 1936 Flash Gordon serial. It's just chapter 1. There's like 13 chapters because it's like, it's a fucking serial. Those are like, 400 minutes long. But so it's just chapter 1, Planet of Peril. But I mean, I looked it up. You can find this series on YouTube, so that's cool. But I just think it's really cool that they're able to put like the first episode on this disc. And it was really interesting seeing how it differs from the beginning of Flash Gordon, because it is similar, because you do have them crash landing in a plane, finding Dr. Zarkov, and then they go up into space in the rocket ship, except in the episode they battle giant lizards.
What?
Well, so it's lizards, but it's literally just lizards, but they glued like horns onto them to make them look more alien.
Oh,
it's literally like what they did with Giant Gila Monster, or like those like cheesy 1950s sci-fi movies where they're like, oh my god, it's a creature, and it's just like a animal that they put like you remember in the original 60s King Kong versus Godzilla, where they just had an octopus.
Yeah, the giant octopus.
That's literally what they did, but with iguanas and lizards. It was really funny. It was really cute. One more thing I want to mention actually is that it also comes with and it advertises this. It comes with a Flash Gordon Sci-Fi Channel TV show trailer. So this DVD was released in 2007, and on the bonus features, it features a trailer advertising like a sneak peek at the Sci-Fi Channel's revamp of Flash Gordon. And so I watched it, and let me tell you, it is literally, I'm not joking, it is literally just a logo, and it says like, Sci-Fi Channel presents Flash Gordon coming soon, and then it's like over in 10 seconds, and that's the teaser trailer for it.
That's it?
That's it. So I'm like, that
was just a bunch of cheap walk cycles.
Flash Gordon betrayed us. So I looked it up because I'm thinking, I've never heard of this. Is this even real? Like, did this actually happen? Or is this like what they did on like the 2001 DVD release of Dumbo, where they're like, oh, coming soon, Dumbo 2, and then it never happened because Disney just didn't feel like making a Dumbo sequel. So I'm like, did this actually happen? It did happen. In 2007, there was a Flash Gordon TV show on Sci-Fi Channel. It received mostly negative reviews, and it only got one season. So I didn't find much on it, but it does not look good. So I'm like,
that really sucks to hear, because I I think one of the only few Sci-Fi channels I actually know of, one of the few Sci-Fi Channel shows I know of, is that it was back in like 2018 and 2019 where they actually had a Superman show, but instead of it like being just standard Superman stuff, it was called Krypton, actually taking place on Krypton before the planet blew up.
I think I remember that. Yeah. I never watched it, but I remember hearing of it.
Yeah, and I haven't heard many thoughts on it, but pretty much everyone who has watched the show that I know has all said that it's really, really good. So
interesting. Yeah, Sci-Fi Channel was the people who did the Dune miniseries that we've talked about on the podcast. So, they also did Sharknado, but I guess they can do good things, but they also make the 2007 Flash Gordon show and Sharknado. Yeah. So,
I mean, a lot of people do make their Sharknado at some point.
Exactly. So, well, anyway, to wrap this whole episode up, I'm definitely keeping this Flash Gordon DVD. I mean, I definitely want the movie in my collection because it's a lot of fun, but this DVD is just so cool. Like, it's so unique that I have to keep it on this DVD. Like, it's just so neat.
Yeah, I'll see if I'm on the lookout for that one, or I end up getting the Arrow Blu-ray, which I can probably talk about sometime if I ever look into it. But yeah, I definitely want to add Flash Gordon to my collection of like the 80s and 90s comic book movies that I've seen that aren't Marvel and DC. I would probably say I personally prefer Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and The Rocketeer, but I really, really loved Flash Gordon, and I want to add it to my collection sometime.
Yeah. So yeah, good film to add to the collection for sure. I'm very happy. This is let me just say, this was a lot better than Showgirls 2 or Nine Lives of Fritz the Cat. So, a little bit of a bumpy start post episode 100, but we finally got a good movie to add to the collection. So good for us.
Hell yeah.
So, all right, Chaos. Why don't you shout out your stuff, dude? Where can people find you?
I have a YouTube channel that I don't really use much anymore, but maybe I can use it sometime. I have a Twitter where I post stupid stuff, and I have a Tumblr.
Yeah.
Some other websites too. Have you guys ever? What's this thing called Letterbox?
I don't know. A lot of people come on the show and talk about how they have a letterbox. It's weird. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, I have one too, but
okay. I should check it out.
I barely use it. You guys maybe want to check it out, and yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. I don't even have like a funny quip for this one in particular, because this whole episode was basically just zingers, so I think we can end it normally for once.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. So thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Yummers. Yummers. Yummers, 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 yummers. Yummers.